Welcome back to the Road to Greatness Network save on Craggo82, and this is going to be Season 7, which is going to be the closest season I've been involved in a network save for a very long time, and it's going to be great fun to tell you all about it. Straight into it at the start of the new year, where newly promoted Everton were in 3rd, I was in 7th, Sunderland were 9th, Sheffield United were 10th, Leeds, Newcastle and Swansea were all in a relegation battle. Over in the Championship though, Zero's QPR was running away with it, Jay's Lincoln and Shaders Middlesbrough were up in the playoff shouts. And we're going to start the action off in the new year, where we had Bolton in the FA Cup, which we won 4-0 rather easily. Then we had to go up to Store's Leeds United, which we won 1-0 in the league. Then we had Sam Swansea come to visit in the Prem game, where we went 1-0 down, but then we scored 2 late goals to win the game 2-1. Then we had to go over to Manchester to play in the FA Cup 4th round, which we won 2-0. And then we had to go to George's Crystal Palace, where we went 2-1 up, but he ended up coming back to score 2 late goals, and they beat us 3-2. Next was a visit from King Sunderland in the league, where we went 1-0 down. We equalised to make it 1-0, but they scored late on the win 2-1 and do the double over us this season. We then went to Old Trafford, where earlier in the season we'd beaten them 3-2 at Ashton Gate, but it returned the favour with a late Rashford penalty. And over to have a quick look at the league at the moment, where Williams Sheffield United was doing the best. King Sunderland's Dean Everton and myself as Bristol City were right behind him, but only 5 points off the top of the league. Newcastle, Palace, Leeds and Swansea were all 6 points off from the relegation battle. Over in the Championship though, Zero's QPR was running away with it, while Jay's Lincoln and Shaders Middlesbrough were still in with a playoff shout. There's an honourable mention to Dean's Everton as well for making the League Cup final, only to lose in extra time to Southampton. And speaking of extra time, that's how we beat Tottenham in the quarter-finals of the FA Cup with a 101st minute penalty that was scored by Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who had been at the club for 7 years now. He's turned himself into a legend of the club. We then followed that up with a trip to St James's Park to go and play Hayden, which we won 2-0 thanks to goals from Smith Rowe and Hendrick. And then a quick glance at the league, where we can see King Sunderland is now doing the best in 4th, and you would think that Dean's Everton down in 9th was down in 9th, but 8 games to go, there was a long way to go in this season. We then had to play Everton in the league, where we went 1-0 up, but they scored a banger to equalise to make it 1-1, and the result didn't really help either of us. We then had to go to Sheffield United and play William, where we went 2-1 down, but luckily we scored 2 late goals to win the game 3-2. And so back to the league table, where we can see King Sunderland was leading the way in 3rd, I was in 6th, Dean and Will were in 8th and 9th, but there were still only 6 points separating the top 8. We then had Arsenal come to visit, which we won 1-0 thanks to a Smith Rowe penalty, but then we had to go to Coventry, which we lost 5-3 somehow, but we did make up for it with a 6-3 win against Ipswich, and then we ended April with a 3-2 victory over Aston Villa. And then with just 3 games left in the league, Dean was in 2nd with Everton, I was 3rd, King Sunderland were 7th, Williams Sheffield United was 9th and probably out of the running at this stage. But down at the bottom, George's Palace looks safe at this stage, whereas Hayden's Newcastle, Store's Leeds and Sam's Swansea, there was just a point separating them from the drop. We then went and lost 1-0 to bottom of the league Brighton, and even though we went and beat Southampton 6-0 in the next game, we only had 1 game left in the league, and even though we were 2nd behind Dean's Everton, who had just beaten King Sunderland 3-1 to put them out of the run-in, I think we were out of the run-in as well. But down at the bottom of the league, it was only 2 games left, and any of the bottom 5 could still finish last. And as the Championship finished, we could see Zero's QPR absolutely dominated the Championship, becoming champions. Jay's Lincoln lost in the playoffs, and Shady fell off at the end with Middlesbrough to finish 10th. But before we can do the conclusion of the Premier League, we had an FA Cup final to play against Zero's Championship winners QPR. They started off brightly with going 1-0 up in the first half thanks to Lewis Palmer, and then as the second half kicked off, they went 2-0 up, only for us to equalise pretty much straight after thanks to Dario Rome. And then literally nothing was happening then until about the 85th minute, and I literally put as many people forward as I dare. And then as it came up to the 95th minute, we got a corner, and big man Ibarra got one at the back post to equalise 2-2 and send the game to extra time. And then as extra time kicked off, QPR tried playing it out from the back, only for Smith Rowe to nick the ball off him on the edge of their own area. Played it through to Hendrick, who slotted it in for make it 3-2 to Bristol City. Not a lot else happened then for the rest of the game, so the very last kick, which looked like QPR equalised in the 121st minute, only for the referee and linesman to both agree the goal was offside and disallowed it, which then gave us the opportunity to lift the FA Cup. And then, as you can see, it was only Everton who could have won the league out of us lot against Arsenal, but Arsenal had a game in hand which they had to play Ipswich, who were second from bottom at the time, and they lost 1-0. And so, as we went into the last game of the season, Newcastle, Swansea and Leeds could all still go down, and one of them had to go. But at the top, Everton needed to beat Arsenal's result for the title after their first season after coming back up. And we're going to start off in the second half, where we saw at the bottom Swansea go 1-0 up and move into safety. And at the top, Everton and Arsenal, who had both gone 1-0 down early on, but Everton equalised to go back to top. Then in the 80th minute, Swansea conceded just as Leeds scored, which put Newcastle being the ones in trouble late on. And then in the 93rd minute, it was Newcastle who equalised, which meant that even though Newcastle and Swansea were only drawing, Leeds were winning, it was Leeds who were going to go down on just 1 goal difference. And then as my own game got in the way, it was Everton who conceded a 95th minute goal to rivals Liverpool to lose the game and the title. And there we go, the final table. Everton were third in the end, I was 7th, Sunderland were 8th and Sheffield United were 9th. But as you can see, there was only 4 points between 1st and 7th, with Arsenal winning the league with just 70 points. At the bottom it was Swansea and Leeds who ended up going down by a point and a goal. So close. And that's it, that's the end of season 7. It was one of the best seasons I've been involved in for a long time. I really enjoyed it. I hope you all did too. If you've made it all the way to the end, thank you very much. And I'll try and get season 8 out for you very soon.